Hey there, everybody, and welcome to another episode of You Gotta Meet, where today I am going to be speaking to someone who happens to be not just a colleague, but a friend, which is rare for me on this show and makes me extra happy. She is the founder and president of Sipology, which is a manufacturing company that has become one of the fastest growing names in health and wellness. Her name is Tonia Jahshan, and for Tonia, things took an interesting turn in her business when she pitched the Sipology concept on one of Canada's biggest TV shows. You might have heard of it, Dragon's Den, where she was instantly loved by the Dragons and soon went on to be named Canada's #1 female entrepreneur by Chatelaine's W100, Women 100 in 2016. Whether she's sharing tips on how to boost sales, recounting stories from the trenches of startup life, or discussing the powers of a good matcha latte, her goal is to inspire action and spark creativity in everyone who listens. Ladies and gentlemen, you got to meet Tonia Jahshan.
Hey, Stuart. Nice to see you.
This is so fun.
I know.
It's funny. We're catching up almost like through a podcast, which is, the way it happens that when you're both, living the startup life or not even necessarily startup life,
living in a different city like you are.
Yes, I know.
Country.
Yeah. I mean, how did that happen? And it's funny. It feels like it was just yesterday where all of that happened. And it's just incredible how fast time flies. I'm really thinking about that a lot more these days, about trying the best I can to live in the moment.
Yeah.
Just because I guess as you get older, you just start realizing, damn, it goes by fast, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, are you worried about, does that like concern you? Like, are you thinking about death?
All the time. I'm like, okay, I'm 52. I look at, when I see people around me that are sick or, you see celebrities who are dying at like young ages. I'm like, God damn it. I better like really do everything I need to do right now.
Yeah. I read something recently that really struck me where this author of a book was talking about getting the reader to think about how many Thanksgivings they have left on planet Earth.
Gosh, that's tough.
And I was like, oh, it like just hit me across the head like a baseball bat. And I was like, damn. And I thought, I'm 51. I thought, man, I've like theoretically, based on the statistics, around 25, 26. That's how many I'm right. We all have this idea that we're going to live to the age of 100. And another thing I had read recently, which puts that into perspective, people were asked at what age did they see old age beginning?
Right.
And the average age that people gave, ironically, was 10 years past the average age that a person dies. So It shows you just how delusional we are as to how long we think we're going to live. Most people think that their old age will start at a time when most likely they'll already be dead.
Oh, God.
This is great. You know what? I wanted to open this up today on the most depressing note that I could find. I hope I've achieved that.
Well, you totally have. Listen, I'm going for 80. If I make it to 80, I will be 100% happy.
Yeah, 80. Yeah. And you know what? And going in with as many bruises and cuts and scrapes as you possibly can.
Yeah. I just want to be healthy. I want to be a healthy 80. That's why, both of you and I talk about this a lot, but this is why I keep active. This is why I drink a lot of great teas and wellness products. I want to be a healthy 80-year-old. Our generation, you and I are in a totally different generation than our parents were. We don't look like our parents at the same age.
No,
at
I
all.
know. You look at the old pictures and you see, it's like, wow, how old were you there, Dad? And I was 40. I'm really.
Exactly. We are taking much better care of ourselves. So the likelihood of us having, being 80 and healthier is like really good. So that's a bonus. That's happy.
Knock on wood. Knock on wood. Well, you talk about the teas that you drink, and obviously that is the crux of your business, although I know you've expanded so much. And even though this podcast is not necessarily all about business, I think for my viewers and listeners, I want them to at least have some sort of context. Tell us in a nutshell what Sipology is.
Right. Okay. Well, Sipology started out as steeped tea. 20 years ago. It's 20 years this month, Stuart.
Oh my God.
Yep. That I was married and that I started steep tea. Like I literally, like my husband and I have been working together for 20 years. Like give us a medal.
That's a medal by itself.
Oh my gosh. So anyways, it started out as steep tea and we Adam and I were just married for a couple of months and we wanted to start a family right away, got pregnant. Everything was rolling along fabulously until about 14 weeks when we both lost we had a miscarriage. And that took us out to Nova Scotia, where I just wanted a break from everything that had happened. And we were introduced to this very first bed and breakfast, this loose leaf tea called Cream of Earl Grey. And 20 years ago, nobody was talking about loose leaf tea. It was on nobody's radar. Just you'd have these little tiny mom and pop shops splattered across Canada. And I brought that tea home, started introducing it to my friends and family, and really immersed myself in that whole loose leaf tea world, because I understood the calming effects of how this tea made me feel. And then as I started to grow into that, learn more about loose leaf tea, I understood there are so many medicinal properties to different blends. And that just triggered, that me wanting to introduce people through tea parties. And those tea parties grew. Within 6 months, I was doing upwards of 20 a month. Pregnant again with my daughter Layla. And that's when I decided to incorporate the company and start bringing on sales agents, with consultants, we called them, to help sell this product with me. And then fast forward to 5 years later, we went on Dragon's Den as Steep Tea, blew it out of the water, grew tremendously, like 300% growth year over year for about 5-6 years. And then by 2017, we started to see that there was a ceiling for loose leaf tea, because everybody started getting into loose leaf tea, right? The David's Teas of the world, the Tivanas, everybody got into loose leaf tea. So that's when my health started to take a turn at that point. I was starting to feel an incredible amount of anxiety and depression and stress, because it was like 6 years of incredible growth, and I just wasn't taking care of myself. And 3 children, by the way, to boot, 3 young children under the age of 8. And so I ended up in the hospital for 6 weeks, and a mental health hospital. And through that experience, one of the contributing factors that we found out to my mental health problems was my vitamin levels were really bad. Like, I was sitting at a 6 with my iron, which is, should be about 80. I was sitting at a negligible vitamin D level. Like, everything was off. And so they're like, when you leave the hospital, you need to get on a really good vitamin routine. And I'm like, damn it, I hate taking vitamin pills. Some of them are so big, they choke on them.
Right.
And I forget. And so that's when we went to our in-house R&D team, led by my husband, who's a chemical engineer and a food scientist, and said, can you guys develop a line of boosters, vitamin boosters, iron being one first, and vitamin D, and make them taste good? I can throw them in my smoothie. I can throw them into my coffee or my tea. And that's what we did. The first iron came out as chocolate, and then the vitamin D was caramel mocha. And so that changed the name to Sipology. That's it. That's pretty much why the name Sipology happened, was because we now weren't just a tea company. We were a wellness company that you sip everything, right?
Right. I see. And chemically putting these really great natural ingredients together to not just create a great tasting product, but something that's going to help people's lives. And I remember you saying to me one time, I think you got to the point that, and I'm going to probably butcher this, but I think you said you had something like 6,000 salespeople, maybe higher, 8,000 salespeople. What was the peak? Number of people selling your product across North America?
We had 10,000
people
selling our product in North America. It was awesome. And I, changed a lot of lives. People made a lot of money, and it's been great. Yeah.
And, so when I think about that, I always find it interesting, because I get people coming up to me at the end of my keynotes quite often saying, hey, I want to do XYZ with my life. I don't even know where to begin. And my response to them is always the same. I say, start anywhere, because anywhere is a place, and anywhere will lead you everywhere. And one day that came out of my mouth, and it really stuck with me. That is what we do as entrepreneurs. throw something against the wall, and a lot of it doesn't stick and a lot of it goes nowhere, but
Yeah.
it's still starting somewhere. And it's usually that experience that leads you to your next decision. And your
Mhm.
decisions get better and better throughout time. But even now, you must look back at this and just think, what the hell was I thinking? And secondly, like, how the hell did I pull this off? Like, do you have those moments?
All the time. This is part of the thing that, like I'm going through a process right now where people are coming in and looking at our company and, wanting to partner with us. And they're just always so impressed with what Adam and I have built. And he and I, we are so in it that we don't realize sometimes that what we've built is so incredible.
Yeah.
And so it's nice to get that, that recognition that, wow, like, yeah, because sometimes like we've said, what the F are we doing? Like, this is
Right.
crazy. The last couple of years have been hard. We've dipped into our RSPs. We've, put a hold on our salaries just to get to the next phase of growth in this company. And there are moments over a couple of beers where we're like, why are we doing this? Like,
Oh, yeah.
Right? It hurts.
Yeah.
But you have to believe in your company so much, and we do, but it still hurts.
And I think the same could be true for those who are listening to this who aren't entrepreneurs, to imagine other areas of their life where they're maybe taking the road less traveled. So it could be parents who take their kids out of school for a year and they said, oh, we're going to live in Southeast Asia. And 6 months into it, it's really hard.
Yeah.
And you really start looking at each other going, is this the right thing? Should we have done this? Same is true for somebody who's, let's say, in the middle of their life and they've decided that they just no longer want to work for that company, and they're going to take the risk and they're going to now go start that cake making business, or they're going to go just move into a new industry, or they're going to go back to school. In those moments, yes, I think that it is so true that we find ourselves really questioning our intelligence, questioning our motivations, and questioning whether or not we, quite frankly, just have what it takes to get there.
Right.
But the flip side is that if you don't do it, I feel like the negative feelings that you'll go through of never knowing are worse than the negative feelings of, going through the tough stuff.
Listen, from everything I've read lately, and especially lately, is that the people who succeed the most are the people who can push through this, who can push through these feelings, who can go, okay, yeah, this sucks, but you know what? We're going to keep doing it because we believe that this is going to all work out. And that's really hard to do. But the people that can do it are the ones that win. And so that's what we're doing, right?
That's amazing. Good for you. I mean, I remember reading something in a book a long time ago that always stuck with me, where this guy had gone out and interviewed, I think it was up to 1,000 people who had all been successes in different areas of their lives, but they'd really pushed the limits of their lives. And he was trying to find out what that commonality was. And he said there were the obvious things, perseverance and positive attitude, stuff that you'd expect. He says, but the one that he didn't expect was that every single person out of the 1,000 all had a story where they had felt like they had come to the end of their rope. And it was then that they continued to go one step further. And that was when things turned around. And so I listened to that and I was like, oh my gosh, I needed to hear that at that time, because for me, I remember I was 28 years old. I was $250,000 in debt. I was so close to declaring bankruptcy. And I remembered these stories that I had read about people who had done those extraordinary things and knew that they had all had that exact same moment of coming to the end of their rope and continuing. So you've got to do it. Now, when you were a kid, though, what the heck did you want to be when you grew up? I mean, I'm guessing this was not on your radar.
No, no, yeah, yes and no. I think I always had what it took to be an entrepreneur. I was an only child, came from a divorced family, was very, I had to be very imaginative. I had to be very not serving, that's the wrong word. I had
Sufficient.
to really self-sufficient all the time. And we didn't have a lot of money. And I was always the kind of person who wanted what my friends had, right? So I had a paper route early on in I was 8 when I started my first paper route. I did little garage sales. I mean, I was always trying to make money somehow. And I always knew, I just knew when I was from the age of 8 on, that I was going to do something awesome, that I didn't want to be in the poverty level that we were in for the rest of my life. I just didn't want that to happen.
You just knew it.
I just knew it. And unfortunately, I wasn't a great student. I was like a B student. I didn't have parents who pushed me to, like, my husband is like, oh my God, every degree imaginable. So my kids are so lucky because he can help them with their science and their math and oh my God, I had nothing of that. Right. So I ended up going to college because it was the easy thing to do. I was an early childhood educator, but all through my college years, I was selling something. This is where I was introduced to the direct selling market, the industry, right? I started selling Mary Kay first, and then it was Pampered Chef, and then it was Party Light. And I was always looking for an opportunity to sell something that I really believed in. So I've always been selling something. Like,
you've always had a hustle.
I've always hustled. I've been always hustling, even though I didn't know where it was going to lead, but here we are.
So when you talk about your childhood, and there's parts that I wasn't even aware of there. So obviously, having the economic challenges was a difficult thing. Plus, having divorced parents and being an only child, what sticks out as being like some of the biggest or the biggest difficulties that you did experience as a child?
Loneliness. For sure. Loneliness for sure. Having divorced parents was very difficult. My mom didn't really know, I don't think, really how to handle being a single parent. And so her and I weren't very close growing up. We're closer now than we were before. And I understand now, just thinking I could never be a single parent. Oh my God. Like that's rough. And, but yeah, I would say the loneliness of it, always trying to, loneliness and being a people pleaser, always trying to find my tribe, trying to find those people that I could build a community with. I've always wanted to be surrounded by people. I love good people and I love a community. I didn't have family either. Like, I didn't have any cousins. I mean, when my parents separated, it was it. It was cut and dry. Like, there was no, I lost everything. My cousins from his side, everything. And so, yeah, for me, I would say that the biggest, hardest part was really building that new community for myself. Yeah.
Do you find that as an adult, some of that trauma that you would have experienced through feeling lonely creeps up in other areas? Like, I'll give you an example. I was listening to Dr. Gabor Mate not too long ago, and he has his big story, of course, when he was growing up in, I believe, Hungary. And he talks about his mother having no choice because of the Holocaust, but to hand him over, I think he was 1 or 2 months old, to a stranger who then he didn't see his mother again. I think it was something like a month and a half later. And he talks about how that abandonment plays out in his everyday life. The example he gave was how his wife was in fact late picking him up from the airport. And he really was upset by it. And he was upset because for him, he realizes it's the abandonment that's still playing out as a man in his 70s. And of course, him being a therapist, he says, you'd think that you worked through this, but it can still creep into your life. And so I'm curious, does the feeling of loneliness, or maybe your desire to not be lonely, does it dictate sometimes the way you are or the way you act or the decisions that you make?
Oh my gosh, that story that you just said is exactly me. That feeling of abandonment, like my dad, my biological father, would constantly be late. He would either be late or he wouldn't show up at all. Like when it was his turn to take care of me, and that really carried through to who I am today. Like, I can't handle when people are late. I can't. Late makes me jittery, and I know it's because of that. It's that feeling of abandonment. I would say that also, I have been, and maybe a small part of me is still, but I was such a big people pleaser that got in the way of me really authentically developing sincere relationships. You know, you find out in the long run that some of these relationships that you thought were authentic and real weren't actually real, right? It was just me people pleasing them. Now I found my tribe. Now I know what my worth is, what I bring to the table as a friend, as a wife, as a mother, more than I ever did before. It took me a long time to get to this point. But it's still in the back of my head a little bit, right?
That must be so gratifying, though, to get to that place of growth and to see this newer version of yourself, even though you're always going to have areas in your life where you want to improve, myself included. But it must feel so good to just get to that place where you're in greater control of your own psychological well-being.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I feel good about it. I don't need 1,000. I don't need 100 friends. I need like a good close group of 5 good friends. Yeah. And that's what I've developed over the last, I'd say 20 years. Right? I get rid of the people that don't serve me well and keep the ones that do.
Did you ever find your need to please people negatively impacting your ability to be a boss? Were you trying to constantly please your employees?
Oh God, yes, all the time. And that got me into a lot of trouble. Because I always wanted to get everybody's approval, right? I just wanted to be their friend. I wanted to be the boss that, would go and hang out with them. But then I realized I can't be that person. There is a line that gets crossed. And when that line gets crossed, everything becomes very gray. And there is a certain level of, what I've noticed is that people get very much more entitled to you, when they start to know more and more things about you personally. There's a level that I didn't realize at the time that you crossed, and that can come back and bite you in the ass, and has in a few times. Yeah. So now I can't be that person anymore. I mean, I'm very friendly with with our team. I love them, but not on the same level as I was before.
It's such a growth period to go through, I find. And I still struggle with it too, where, I'll have a client, for example, that will say, hey, we want you to do a keynote speech at this event. And then all of a sudden they start throwing all of these, and I'm sure you go through this too, these parameters around my keynote. My keynote's usually 60 to 75 minutes in length. And all of a sudden they'll say, could you do 45 minutes? And you're like, well, okay, I can do 45 minutes. And they'll say, you know what? Now, we really like most of your speech, but could you just add in this subject because it's something that we're really going through now? Well, I've spoken about that subject before. I guess I could weave it in. I'm already seeing my current keynote being watered down because of it. I'm like, yes, I can do that. And they're like, we actually would like you to do like a lunch with the executive team as well, but for the same price. And you become such a people pleaser where you just want to be not the person that is a thorn in everyone's side. Yeah. You want this organization to see you as a real team player, but eventually you go, oh, you know what? At some point, we just have to either change the invoice or we have to change the expectations. Yeah. And it is such a psychological thing for me to go through, even after being someone who's been an entrepreneur and doing this with thousands of clients for the last 30 years. Yeah. I still have that anxiety pop up from time to time. So it's there. It's our childhood. Now, back to your childhood, though, what's something you do cherish from your childhood? What's on the flip side of all that?
I think I really appreciate I think that my childhood, being an only child and just going through a little bit of that trauma and loneliness, actually shaped me to who I am today. I'm a very authentic person. I care deeply about people. Oh no, sorry. I care deeply. Oh shoot. Oh my gosh. Hold on.
Ladies and gentlemen, Tonia is a very busy person.
I care deeply.
It's going to be. This is an authentic conversation that we're having, and people who are going to be hearing this or watching this, they can just roll with it. They've seen this in their lives.
So I feel that, I'm a much better person for what I went through as a child. I'm an authentic person. I care deeply about people, and if you are a good person and not a jerk, I will be your best friend for life, and I will walk across coals for you.
Oh, that's great. So it's funny, like you're actually, it's, cliche as it sounds, you're able to take like lemons and turn them into lemonade, right? Where you can see some of the adversity you've gone through and see how it's impacting your life in a positive way.
Okay. One more. Okay. I'm going to totally change that vibe. I would say that Disney World. My parents, my mom and my dad, when they were still together, took me to Disney World. It just opened, I think, opened in 1974. And so we went in 1977. I was like 5. I was about, and I will never, ever, ever forget that experience as a 5-year-old. And that created this obsession that I have till today with Disney World. Not just Disney World, but with Disney himself, the man. I have done so many projects, so many articles, so many things on this man because I love his story. So that's my positive thing from my childhood.
That is definitely an autobiography everyone should read because his life is, he's entrepreneur beyond entrepreneurism.
Yeah.
I was really happy not too long ago where I read like a fun fact because I grew up in a small town, which you probably know, Goderich, Ontario. Shout out to Goderich. Yeah. And I was there for my formative years of my life. And Walt Disney was telling the story about, wanting to kind of retrace, I think it was his grandfather's steps. And he was into being a videographer, I guess, if you will, at that particular time. And we're talking like 1950s, 1960s. And going back, he retraced his grandfather's steps, where he owned a farmstead in Goderich, Ontario.
Get out of town. Wow.
Yeah. So Walt Disney had gone to Goderich, and he tells this story about, filming this farmstead, and he gets all these really cool shots of it. And it wasn't until later, if I've got this correct, that his wife reminds him that he actually filmed the wrong farmstead. It wasn't even his great-grandfather's, his grandfather's. So I was like, shout out to Goddard. That was neat.
That is cool.
It is cool, right? So you go through life. You're now, as you say, you're 52. We're in that middle part of our life, as we say, maybe a little further in. Obviously, you've got these good memories, some of these bad memories. You've had all these people who have crossed your path throughout the years. Who's someone, when you think about that you miss the most, and what do you miss most about them? And whether they've passed on to the other side or whether there's still someone here, but you just don't get to see that often, who comes to mind when you think about all these people you've met along the way?
Yeah, well, that's a very easy one for me. So what I haven't explained yet is that when I was 14, my mom met someone else. Okay. His name was Doug, and Doug quickly became a father figure in my life. I pretty much separated from my biological father when I was about 17. Like, we didn't speak after that until he passed away like a couple of years ago, and we still hadn't really seen each other or spoken, but I did get to say goodbye to him. But anyways, Doug, who I call Dad now, became like a huge figure in my life. He owned his own business. He had a sales and marketing agency. So from an early age, well, no, I would say probably wasn't until I was about in my early 20s when I really started to watch what he was doing with marketing and sales. He was selling electrical equipment and hand tools. So I watched him do that for about 10 years, build up a really substantial business. And at the age of 30, when I was getting really kind of like done with being a teacher and all the things, he wanted to retire, and he couldn't think of anyone better to take over his business than me. And so that one opportunity was that changed my life forever, right? Because I don't know where I would have been. I don't know where I'd be right now, to be honest with you, if he hadn't given me that opportunity to really sink my teeth into my own business. Because I quit being a teacher. I jumped right in. It was an established business. I met my husband because of it, because he was running Subways. I was an entrepreneur as well. And we met because of our entrepreneurial spirits. And so a lot happened because of that, because of Doug, and my stepfather, who is unfortunately now no longer with us. He passed away about 3 years ago. And so he is somebody that I miss a lot.
What's a big lesson that he taught you?
Oh,
what's one that comes to mind? I'm sure there's so many.
Never give up, persevere, develop relationships. Oh my gosh, he was such a great developer of relationships. That is the key to success. It's who you develop relationships with. It's who you network with. It's all of that. Those are the biggest lessons I learned from him. He knew I had it he knew I had it already, that I was a great talker. I would love people. I could, could sell things, but, he really took me under his wings for about a year. We would travel around together, getting the handle on the business. And I learned a lot from him. And one of them was, you get a lot of no's, but a lot of those no's will turn into yeses. So don't take the no's and make it personal. Take the no's as not right now, right? Like, so there was a lot of really like that perseverance of, everyone's going to say yes to your products, or, it might be a year from now when they decide they want to buy your products, but don't take it personally. Yeah.
I think about this with a lot of friends of mine who I know struggle with the dating relationship, the game, if you will.
Yeah.
And it really saddens me how they've had, let's say, 6, 7 dates that turned into second, third, fourth dates. In some cases, they turned into short-term relationships and then just didn't go anywhere. And they are now convinced that must mean that they have to be single for the rest of their life, or that they weren't just meant to meet somebody who could be a great partner for them. Yeah. And I often look at that, as I'm sure you do, through the entrepreneurial lens, which is, God, if I had given up every single time someone had said no to me, I would have been done 25 years ago. I mean, I remember I used to walk into my house back in the day when the answering machines were like the little tapes. And I would always look off in the distance, and I would always be so hoping that I would see the green light flashing, and so hoping that there would be somebody who would be leaving a message, and almost always there was the green light wasn't flashing. And then on the very odd occasion when it was, I'd go over, I'd press the button with all this excitement. Someone's going to book me for a keynote. And then it would be some telemarketer just asking me if I wanted to buy something. And you're just thinking, oh my God, you keep on going until the next day. So what a great lesson that he's taught you, and that he's helped you see. On the flip side of that, again, what is another lesson though you've learned in life that you had to learn, maybe not through the easier way, which is to have a mentor teaching you, but on the harder way? What's a hard lesson you've had to learn?
A hard lesson I've had to learn. Oh gosh, I think the hardest lesson I've had to learn is that I'm not going to be everyone's cup of tea. That's a hard lesson to learn, right? You really, you think that, I don't know, I always assume that everyone's going to like me. And that is certainly not the case. And no matter how much you try, you're just not meant for everyone, right? I think that's a hard lesson for me to learn in business and in life, right? Like, I try to be like the best person I could possibly be, but sometimes my personality doesn't jive with someone else's, and I would take it so personally. But now I'm just like, it's just because that's just life. Like, not everyone's going to like you. And I've had to really, come to terms with that.
And I bet you it took a long time, right? That's not an overnight lesson you learn.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
And I've met a lot of people in my life now, like thousands, 10,000 Sipologists, all the people that have worked for me over the years. I mean, God, the amount of people that have come in and out of my life is unbelievable. And a lot of them didn't like me, and that's okay.
Yeah. Did you ever find yourself coming to a point where, I don't want to use this always as a cop-out, but at the same time, widening my own consciousness into recognizing that it is something to do with them, right? It's a case where they don't like you for something to do perhaps on the way that you triggered their own childhood trauma. Right. Have you considered that?
Totally. 100%. I think that my personality could trigger something in somebody. Like, I'm very outgoing. I'm really opinionated. I'm a little loud. And and my husband's the opposite, by the way. So I'm sure that I trigger a lot in him as well.
Yeah.
But he is thankful that I am, because if I wasn't, we'd be living a hermit life. We'd have no friends. We would have no business.
It's funny. I have gone through the exact same situation with my own partner. She's more of an introvert. She is an introvert, and I obviously am not. I'm an extrovert, and I have often been said to her, it's like, hey, you've got these really great friends. You should get out there and see them and do things with them.
God, the same conversation I have with my husband.
No kidding.
all the time.
Isn't that funny? Well, and as I say this, tomorrow she's leaving me for 5 days with the kids by myself because she's going to goddamn Jamaica with those girlfriends. I'm like, oh, why did I say this?
Good for her.
Yeah.
Good for her.
Yeah, totally. So she's getting out there. But I know what you mean in the sense that I too have really had a difficult time with not being liked. And in New York, when you come here or you go to any new city, it was a really interesting thing. I just assumed that it wouldn't take long for me to create a friendship base because I'm a nice guy and I'm an outgoing guy and I'm fun and I'm funny and I just, it just should be easy. I couldn't believe it. I was meeting all these different parents, and then I would ask like a dad, hey, where I'm vibing with, we should go for a beer sometime. He's like, yeah, we should do it. And we do it. And then I'll try and do it again with him. And he becomes unavailable. And I'm like, oh, I thought we had a good conversation. And you're right. It's something that for whatever reason, they just don't want to continue the relationship. And you really have to just do your best to not look in the mirror and think there's something wrong with you, but rather realize that not that there's something wrong with them, but it's the world we live in, and the world is a messy place. I mean, speaking of which, because we kind of got into that a little bit before we started recording today, we were both talking about how crazy the world is, and it just seems like it's changing faster than ever before. What are you worried about when you look at the world around you? Because I know that it's so easy to get so focused on your life and then being a mom and being a partner and everything else. What are you worried about when you think about the world?
Wow. Well, that's a loaded question because I'm worried about a lot right now. But one of the things I am worried about, I would say the most for me, because I'm such an advocate for women and women's health and women's just equality across the board for women. I'm really worried about still literally less than 2% funding, research funding goes to women's health still.
Really?
It's all the amount of the other 90+% goes towards men's health. Other people like men, I don't know who else, but mostly men. Let's just put mostly men. 2% of capital fundraising goes towards women businesses. It's getting harder. We have, a government, I'm not going to say who, but that is literally, taking rights away from women. We saw it with Roe versus Wade. We're starting to see it with, it's just the way that women are being talked about again, like trophy wives. It's come out of someone's mouth recently. I'm worried about women falling back again. I'm worried that we're going to, in 10 years, look back and go, what the F just happened? That's kind of what I'm worried about.
That's a big, that's a big one to be.
Yeah. I have 2 daughters that I worry about constantly. Like, what's the world going to look like in 10 years? I'm constantly telling them, you've got to stand up for yourself, stand up for your rights, stand up for your education, everything, jobs. Like, I just think that, women we made a lot of progress, but it feels like we're going backwards right now.
Yeah. It is something that you can't deny as you look at the world around you and you read the newspaper. And I have a daughter as well, and I find myself equally concerned for her for many reasons, and many of the ones that you just spoke about today. And it almost feels like one of the things that I've found interesting is that for so many decades, it felt like women were, and this is, I'm treading on thin ice when I speak this way because I know that I could be, people love to cancel you and to cast you as some sort of, title that you are because of one thing you said. But to those watching and listening, I say this with love. It felt like I was watching women approach life from a perspective of saying, hey, look, we are just as powerful. We can do things just as well as men. We're just as smart. We're just as talented. We're just as capable, which in my mind is, obvious. However, as I was watching that, there was a part of me that wondered if some women were making the mistake of trying to basically prove that they're just as good as people who maybe didn't do things the right way.
Right.
So like when you look at men and you think about, the way that we've become, now I think men are fantastic, but
Absolutely.
but I think that a lot of us have really sacrificed so much to be able to reach as many of the goals that we try to reach. And I mean, look, I think there's a certain level of that comes from our upbringing. But you look at men who, let's say, reach the highest levels of success, for example, just in business, and what they've had to sacrifice to get there. They've sacrificed their health. In many cases, they've sacrificed their relationships with other people.
Yep.
They've sacrificed time doing things that are important, such as spending time in nature or reading a good book or whatever it may be. And yet, in the eyes of the public, well, let's say they've got $1 billion. And I'm thinking, is that what a woman wants to show that she's capable of doing? Or I think maybe it's time, and maybe I'm sure this is happening, but I love when I see women blazing a new path that we as men could follow.
Right.
And for us to go, holy, maybe we don't have it right. Maybe suppressing our emotions all the time. Maybe kind of always trying to be the tough guy, always, working 10 times harder than we should. Maybe that's not the path that people should blaze. And it's time for us to start seeing, women do, the opposite. Now, back to your point. I'm sure a lot of women listening just be like, yeah, dude, I'd love to do that. But if we're only getting 2% funding or we're only getting 2% of the research being put into women's healthcare, it ain't that easy. And so I would imagine that's probably the concern you're speaking about.
Yeah. Well, women are finding ways around it. Like you see some pretty like massive women founders that have just exited their companies. Look at Poppy. Poppy was a young mom, started this Poppy Pop or whatever it was, and sold it for $1 billion to Pepsi. You've got, granted, Jessica or what's her name, something Bieber, what's her name, that just sold her skincare line.
Yeah,
for $1 billion.
Baldwin. Yeah, there's something Baldwin.
Yeah. So
right,
she
killed
celebrity
it.
status behind her. But girls are starting to, like little girls and my children's age, little girls and young women are starting to watch all of this happening and going, okay, there must be a way. There must be a way that they're doing this, and I want a piece of it too. So I think that hopefully we'll find some ways around it. But I agree with you. I love men too. I am loving that men are becoming more authentic, more vulnerable. I see it a lot in my circles, in my social, and even on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn because we as women, I think, have probably led the path there, right? Of authenticity and talking about, just the things that we go through, like physically, like just everything that we have, like the menopause, the perimenopause, the periods, the birthing, like it's a lot. We stayed silent for so many years about all of the things that our bodies went through and mentally, physically, but now we're starting to really, really talk about it. And I think men are starting to talk about things too.
Yeah. Interesting times. I find it interesting, even just the idea of saying you have a therapist.
Yeah.
I don't know how, maybe 20 years ago, that would be like, you might share that with your closest confidant that you're seeking therapy. But, and even just how I loved how authentic you were at the beginning of this call when you talked about how you, you found yourself, requiring your own level of therapy for a 6-week period when you were going through your own breakdown, if you will, or resurgence. And it's so inspiring to hear that, because I think a lot of people do get into those places where they do feel so alone in their belief that they are unique in the fact that they're going through a depression or anxiety or wherever it may be, as they look at the world around them and think, Jesus Christ, what the hell is happening? And for more and more people to just start waking up and going, oh no, don't worry. We're all thinking it. We're all worried about the future. And we need to be willing to go first in these conversations, whether you're a man or a woman, so that people can walk through that door with you and talk about some of the stuff that they're really worried about. And so I guess when it comes right down to it, all we can try and do is to influence our own sphere and our own circle and the best that we can, whether it's inspiring our own daughters to go out there and to be entrepreneurially minded, or to be tough and resilient and to believe in themselves, or to be clever and just find other ways of getting those research dollars to be increasing, and whatever it may be. And speaking of which, then, if I can, I've got a few more questions before I let you go today. But I just wanted to, I mean, you clearly care about people and care about seeing individuals, have the best life they possibly can have. What do you think about when you, as a leader in the business that you're currently in, what do you want most now for the people that you lead? Now that you've had all this experience under your belt?
I want everyone to be successful and win, right? Right now, I'm in the mindset of, I am looking at some pretty big decisions for the company in the next few weeks. And I always have our team, our field, my family, everybody in mind, our partners, potential partners. I want everyone to win, right? It's never been about just Hadam and I, ever, since I started this company, almost to somewhat of a detriment to us, just because we did think a lot about other people in the early days, maybe up until about 5 years ago, about everyone else's feelings other than our own. But now I'm just I've grown so much in the last 5 years. I've learned so much. I just want everyone to win. I know it's going to happen. I know that whoever I take along for the ride in the next phase is going to win. And that's what I want. I want everyone to win. And I want to be able to give back to the entrepreneurial world. I do a lot of mentoring now for, people introduce me to people who are looking for, whether it's advice on Dragon's Den, whether it's advice on anything. I'm an open book. I just really want to give back, because I didn't have that 20 years ago. There was no one to talk to.
Yeah.
Like, you see all of these, what do you call them? These incubators that are everywhere. They're giving out cash for like startups, advice. I was like, I didn't have any of that.
I know. I remember like having to lie and pretend I lived in regions where they were trying to pump money into them. This is like 30 years ago. I was like, no, I couldn't get a loan from anyone. So I'm like, you know what? Can I, you find somebody who you knew and you said, can I just use your address? Because no one will give me $1. And that was back in the day of like, I was just trying to raise $10,000. Yeah. And then I'd blow through that in like about 6 weeks. And then I need another $10,000. Yeah. And it's exciting to think about, that there's people out there that are willing to help if you're just willing to seek their advice. Yeah. I'm always blown away by how many people I'll meet who will say to me, I'm sure you go through this, I would really love to pick your brain. Would you mind? And I go, absolutely. Here's my email address. Here's my phone number. And I never hear from them again. No. Yeah. It's like you're serving it up for them. Like, I will give you my best stuff. Just come to the table with 10 questions and we'll knock it out of the park in an hour. And they still don't even show up. No, people do not see the value in asking questions. I would say that if there is one takeaway that I could give everyone today, is constantly be curious, constantly ask questions from everybody. I mean, I would say in the last 6 months, I've really accelerated that. I have been literally meeting with everybody I could possibly meet with and asking so many questions. And that is what's led me to today. It's a great piece of advice. When I spoke years ago for the Department of Defense for Canada, they had literally and deliberately physically designed their building so that when you were walking from, let's say, one department to another, or even to the washroom, wherever it might be, they had what these things called collision points. And what they were meant to be was areas where if you did bump into a colleague, there was a couch and a table right there. And they knew that these would be the places, the intersections by which people would bang into each other. So why not create an inviting space for them to sit down and to talk? And through that conversation, they'll ask questions. They'll start learning more about, that person's business and talking about whatever project they're working on. And it will be there that some of the greatest ideas are sparked and collaboration takes place.
Yeah.
And it's to your point, which is like, you just need to start the conversation with people, and you will pull out so much information that will take you and that person even further.
And not just information, introductions. Oh my gosh. Like they'll be like, oh, what? They'll hear something. You're like, oh my God, you have to meet this person. Oh my God, I'm introducing you to this person. And I have never, ever been in a situation where someone didn't follow through on that. I really haven't. And maybe if they did, I would email them the next day and go, hey, just a reminder.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Like you have to follow up with people too. People are not there to chase you. You have to chase them.
Yep. I've been going through this recently where, I was feeling reluctant to follow up with some people that I had been introduced to through a mutual friend of mine. And, I was thinking, am I being, annoying? Am I bugging these people? And then eventually I was like, well, you've got no other choice. So I'm like, hey, and a friendly reminder just in case you haven't. And they get back to you like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot. I'm so sorry. Let's jump on a call next week. Like, bam, there you go. So you just open your mouth. Yeah, people are busy. People are busy.
Right?
So as we close off, I've got one last question for you.
Okay.
And because it's so exciting to see what you've done with your life and with your business and the way that you care for other people in the country that you live in. But on a personal level, what is something now that when you look forward, you go, I've done all this stuff, but I got to do that before I die. If I don't do that, I'm going to be pissed off. What comes to mind of something that you just on your bucket list?
Yeah, that's easy. I'm a big traveler. I love traveling, and my bucket list is, when I have a time to breathe after whatever, the next phase of business, I want to go and live somewhere for 3 months. I want to, go maybe on a world tour of somewhere. Like that's what I really want to do. I love different ethnicities. I love different cultures. I love different foods. I mean, I love it all. I just want to learn what the rest of the world is doing. Yeah.
Okay. So 3 months is if you had to be pinholed out a little bit to what part of the world you might do that in. Is there one that comes to mind?
Oh yeah. Europe.
Europe. Oh yes.
Love Europe. Oh my God. I love Europe so much. But if it wasn't, if not Europe, cause I've done quite a bit of Europe, but not enough. I would say, Asia Pacific, like Vietnam, Singapore, Cambodia, Thailand, like that area is fascinating to me as well.
Let me know when it happens. I've
I will.
The joys of going through many of those places. One thing that I think a lot about, and I'm curious to know if you think about this a lot, is at what age do you really start introducing your children to these travel experiences? Because in the beginning, I think most parents go, I don't know. It's like, my kid's not going to want to walk around a church. There's so many things they're not going to want to do. Is there been a time for you where you thought, you know what, doesn't matter, I'm taking them? Or are you thinking about, holding off until they're all at that age where you can really kind of allow them to be at a point where they can really dive into the experience?
Well, so my kids are now 17, 15 and 13. And 2 years ago, we took them on a 3-week trip to Spain, and it was unbelievable. Now, listen, the 13-year-old, 12-year-old at the time, 11-year-old at the time was a little like, Mom, like, I don't really want to walk anymore. But we made sure that in that trip, there were lots of beach days, downtime. But yeah, no, I told the kids, like, we're due for a really good family trip like that again. I'm thinking not this year, but next year. And they've all decided they want to do Italy. So I'm like, game. Italy for 3 weeks. Yeah.
You can't go wrong with Italy.
No, you can't. And they will absolutely love it. With a stopover in Paris, because my kids are very fluent in French. And they want to practice their skills in France for a little bit, or Paris, but mostly Italy.
That's amazing. One of my favorite things in the times I've been in Italy is to go to basically any restaurant. It doesn't have to be high end. And I always say to the server, listen, bring me a full-bodied bottle of red wine that is around 16 euros. That's my
Yeah.
line. 16 euros, because you don't have to spend a lot of money. And they'd be
Right.
like, nope, I know exactly what you need. Boom, put it down the table. It's 15, 16 euros. You're not
Yeah.
spending a lot of money, and it's
Nope.
the most unbelievable wine you've ever drank
Yeah.
in your life. And it's like,
Our
how am
house
I
wine
only
is
paying
the
this?
best. I know.
Yeah.
Always the best. House wine in Italy is always the best wine. Like, you do not have to spend a lot of money on wine in Italy to get really great wine. I totally agree with you.
Just get there. Well, that's awesome. I think that you've got some pretty exciting family time ahead, and I know that you've got some really exciting business times ahead. And I, really want to just thank you for taking the time to be on the show and to share your thoughts and to be vulnerable and to be willing to have a meaningful human connection where you are inspiring other people to watch something like this and be like, you know what, maybe I shouldn't be so afraid to have authentic relationships with my coworkers, my clients, my colleagues. We get it. People will understand you. You're not alone. They can handle it. You can handle it.
Absolutely.
And we'll make sure that we put all of your contact information in the bio, underneath the video, and everywhere people will end up picking this up. So don't worry, folks. Just connect with Tonia either on LinkedIn or all the other social media places she shows up. You definitely want to follow what she's doing because she's doing great things. So Tonia, Jahshan, thank you so much for being on. You Gotta Meet.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
You're the best.